Sorry, I had to bring the little girl down with me.
I understand.
Found some newsprint that had been wrapping my 1930s Flash Gordon book that somebody got me.
Oh, there's a good plan.
Yeah. Hey! Stop it!
New in box!
We're all dying anyway.
Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds.
Are they in the proper approach pattern for today?
Negative.
All weapons! Now! Charge the lightning field.
So,
Hello, welcome to Dispatch Ajax. This is Death Metal Jake. Bone saws ready.
hi, this is Dispatch Ajax.
I'm Jake. That other guy, he's from the Dark Multiverse, so he just stopped in.
I'm Bonesaw, which means I've been dead for years.
Hey, you had to snap into that Slim Jim a little too hard.
Snap into a coffin!
Time for the urn.
Was that Jesse's Buddy Ventura?
It kind of sounds like Jesse, doesn't it?
does. I don't know.
Hey Arnold, why don't you put me in your new DC movie? I'll be Bane, eh?
I'm a goddamn comic book Tyrannosaurus. Like Devil Dinosaur. I got nothing.
No. Dude, if you could have Jesse the Barbed Ventura as Devil Dinosaur, yeah, I'll sign up. Yes.
I'll stand in line.
Especially Devil Dinosaur, who's really in conspiracy theories.
QAnon adjacent Devil Dinosaur.
Hey, Moon Girl, we gotta go to the dumps. We gotta save those kids.
Where we go one, we go all. Gross.
Oh, I'm kind of into that.
He was the governor.
But anyway,
governor of
we're
a
not
state.
talking about Devil Dinosaur. Yeah, he was the governor of our hearts.
Hey, did you ever see that SNL skit where Carl Weathers ran for governor of New York because he was in Predator?
Did he lose to Bill Duke instead?
Oh, sadly, no. His entire platform was, I was in Predator.
Hey, it's worked so far.
They're 2 for 2, man. We would be remiss, not covering the rest of the DC Multiverse continuity timeline cluster because a crazy amount has happened since Final Crisis, some of which is inspiring movies, which may not...
You mean since Infinite Crisis?
Since Infinite Crisis, yeah.
Yeah.
Who knows if that Flash movie is going to happen, especially now? We just have no idea. So...
Do you tend to have that? Do you have people slapping other people at karaoke? Just screaming for hours?
I think it has happened before.
But none of those people played the Flash professionally?
No. No,
Okay.
not... Well...
I didn't know if this was an occurrence for all people that play the Flash.
I cannot say definitively, but...
Well, I mean, if you can't, who can?
Bruce Campbell did my karaoke once, so that's close. He was in Darkman and Spider-Man.
This is true.
So-
He'll probably be in Doctor Strange.
Oh, yeah, he probably will, won't he?
I think I saw him in makeup as to be like a variant of the Doctor Strange, which should be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's a deadite Doctor Strange.
Dead-eyed dick. So
So we wanted to hit on some of that old DC Multiverse just a tad more, just to kind of catch you up, because let's be honest, this one's a bit of a fit.
it doesn't really do anything. I don't know. How many analogies and metaphors can you really bring to this to describe it? It's a lot. Like, you've painted yourself into a corner. It's like when you cut your hair too short on one side. It's, you just keep whittling away at good intentions, and then before you know it, it's Chinatown.
Chinatown? I thought I was supposed to forget about that.
That's why you don't have any memory of it, Jake.
The one time I listened, huh?
I hate to break it to you this way, too, but there were two Jakes.
Wait, was there a fat man as well?
Well, you were the Scarecrow and I was Mrs. King. Wait, no, that's not right. So we talked about Infinite Crisis. They created a whole new continuity, a whole new universe with a specific timeline, which should have done it the right way, 20 years after the original. But then they decided that wasn't good enough. So directly after Infinite Crisis, which went on for a little while, they tried a few different things narrative-wise and, publishing structure-wise, like put out a weekly book for the first time in years in 52. So the book 52 is a weekly published book.
Okay, 50, yeah.
Their entire premise is that there's only 52 worlds in the new DC multiverse. And so they come out with a book, 52.
It consists of 52 issues published weekly after Infinite Crisis, take place during the year after.
All DC continuity skipped ahead a year after Infinite Crisis. And then they had a weekly book, 52, that recounted everything that happened over the course of that year. Because a lot of things were different.
Yes.
Like the big three moved on with their lives. It kind of focused on the second tier and third tier characters, like The Question, what happened to the elongated man after Identity Crisis, which is another episode we should get into at some point.
But yeah, Booster Gold, Blue Beetle, Martian Manhunter.
Basically,
stuff.
Everybody outside of the big three, essentially.
In the aftermath of Infinite Crisis, Clark Kent, Bruce Wayne, and Diana Prince have temporarily retired their costumed identities, and remaining heroes attend a memorial for Superboy in Metropolis. Blah, 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 blah happens. Yeah, the book was meh.
It was whatever.
I mean, it's probably most impactful that it was the first appearance of Batwoman, the new version of Batwoman.
Well, also the same, because it's still Kathy Kane. She's just their first maybe pandering outreach to the LGBTQ community.
Yeah, but it's not that same Kathy Kane. It's just someone with the same name, but it's not the,
not the beard Kathy Kane for Bruce Wayne. And of course, the new Question.
The new Question, yes. Yeah.
Which a lot of people hated. They wanted to diversify, so they made a Question a Latina instead of a white dude. So I guess there's that too.
And so far, we're talking about things that don't really have hardcore multiverse continuity issues that are raised. I would say the next thing that kind of happens, one thing I just wanted to touch on is something called Countdown Arena. So after 52, then you had the Countdown, because that's something that happened in 2007. And the Countdown Arena was only cool for the idea that it took unused Elseworld characters. So, like the Red Rain Batman, or Batman from
Gotham by Gaslight Batman.
Gotham Gaslight. And you had them put in an arena and they had a fight, which is real dumb.
That's just Secret War.
It is very close to Secret War, yes. But that happened with these particular multiversal characters as an idea. Wasn't too good.
Yeah, it sounds like a fanboy project more than it does anything else. It's like you and your friends get stoned to talk about comics. That's that story.
Yeah, and it had no long-term ramifications.
No.
Plus, it was part of Countdown, which that's another, year-long thing.
God, I barely remember that.
Yeah, you barely remember it. DC was like, oh, okay, 52 did well. We can hook them. We can hook them with Countdown, which would be 52 issues of Countdown, and then 52 issues of Brightest Day, one a week. These are all, again, dwindling returns and bad ideas.
Was Brightest Day weekly? I thought it was like a 6-issue miniseries.
No, Brightest Day went on for ever.
Jesus, I even have a bunch of that. I don't remember that.
Yes, okay, I can't spell brightest. You don't have to tell me that.
Good stuff.
Computer. Okay, no, Brightest Day was every 2 weeks. It was 24 issues.
All right.
Yeah, it was still too much. It was still 20 issues too much.
Yeah.
After Countdown, that kind of leads us up to skipping Convergence, because who really cares?
Well, we should at least mention it, because it's part of the thing.
Well, all right, mention it.
Okay, well, I actually got to get to Flashpoint first.
No, we got to get to Final Crisis first.
Oh, Final Crisis. Does that have anything to do with the multiverse, though? Isn't that just about the new gods?
Well, it does in a roundabout way, in two ways. For one, he gets into the bleed a lot and different versions of people. This is Grant Morrison, what I'm talking about. You also have Batman being sent in time, through time, by the Power Ray Eyes.
Omega Beams.
Dark Side. Yeah, Omni whatever.
The whatnots and the what have yous.
he got Omnibeams.
The Omegas, Omnimegas.
Omnimegas.
Well, yeah, okay, so...
It just ties into more of what comes later with his touches on the multiverse.
Then we should explain what the bleed is.
We did. We explained what the bleed was last time.
Oh, okay, well then, whatever. So, Final Crisis, they gave the reins of a big event to Grant Morrison, who's great for the most part, great idea guy, really understands and loves Silver Age and Golden Age comics. I don't think Final Crisis, not only was it a misnomer, but not that great. They basically wanted to renew interest in the New Gods, which are, the Jack Kirby creation, Darkseid, and then everyone else that nobody remembers.
Yeah. I mean, really, they have Miracle Man and Darkseid and...
Metron, Granny Goodness, Orion.
Yeah, well, but you don't really have them doing a whole lot in that book.
Oh, in that book? No.
No. I mean, it's just kind of like Darkseid wins.
Yeah. He gets the anti-life equation. There's something about the source wall.
Yeah. And then that happens, and it ends, as all events do.
We should also explain what the source wall is. So the source wall is this metaphorical but also physical barrier that is where all energy and life in the universe comes from. Right?
Yes?
Kind of?
Ish? Kind of. It all kind of depends on who you're talking to as well.
Yeah.
Or like which version of...
If you're talking to that homeless guy that sits outside my apartment, he's got a whole different take on it.
It's made of spinach!
The government!
But the source wall at different times has been the end-all be-all, and other times it's just written out. So...
and then the anti-life equation has kind of been consistent in... Think about standardized testing. Thanos is to Infinity Gems as Darkseid is to anti-life equation.
All right. That's not too bad.
And the anti-life equation, what that is, depends on what year it is, what time it is, what color socks I wore today. Essentially, what Grant Morrison explains is that it gives Darkseid the ability to control consciousness of living beings. Is that correct?
In that version, yes. It's like the end of free will, in a way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, which, okay, fine, because, other than that, you would think the anti-life equation would just be the end of all life in the universe, which could be cool, but that's not really where they take that, so whatever. Because that's hard to fight if you're dead. So, even though if they really thought about it, they could have tied in Brightest Day with that, where, he snuffs out all life, and then they have to bring everybody back, the White Lantern, right? Wouldn't that have been better already? Fixed it.
Yes. Both events aren't very good.
They're not good. In a nutshell, the Final Crisis, Darkseid comes back, enslaves all of humanity, Batman dies.
But he's not dead. He got shot through time.
With a time bullet.
To, inhabit other versions of him?
Yeah, which is based...
Question
It's an
mark?
old Golden Age thing, I'm pretty sure, where similar archetypes of Batman's character throughout time, and when he sacrifices himself to the dark side, his consciousness travels back in time and inhabits bodies of other, at least metaphorical Batmen that, that are kind of him throughout the ages, including a caveman version, which is just stop. Just stop it.
Yeah,
Still better than the time they all turned into gorillas, but God, that was stupid.
I just priced that annual the other day.
Oh, good stuff.
So anyway, that happens.
That happens.
After that, he's not dead. You get to see some Superman across the multiverse, including one modeled on Barack Obama, which comes up kind of later. Mm-hmm. The Dark Monitor is around now, and blah, blah, blah. Then you can get into Convergence, I suppose.
Yeah, so Convergence,
In the story, Brainiac collects cities and inhabitants in various timelines that have ended and traps them in domes on a planet outside of time and space.
We still haven't gotten to Flashpoint, though.
This event's the marked return of DC characters and timelines from before the 2011 Flashpoint.
Yeah, Flashpoint's first.
Okay, so that's after. God damn it.
I know.
All right, you know what? Let's not talk about Convergence at all, because I'm done with it. I hate Convergence.
Yeah, it sucks.
Let's just do Flashpoint. Flashpoint is the next one that really matters.
Sure. It also was completely unnecessary. Jeff Johns got famous and heralded for his work on both Green Lantern and The Flash. So he created a new crisis that would be Flash-centric, because Flash always ends up playing a pivotal role in all of the crises. So the DC brass decided that they had a new streamlined direction that they can control from day one, Flashpoint. So Barry Allen wakes up to a world where Amazons and Atlanteans are fighting over control of the planet. Cyborg is a U.S. government agent. Thomas Wayne is Batman. He became Batman when he saw his son Bruce die, which is actually a pseudo-reference reworking to an arc in the Untold Legends of the Batman, where they retcon in that Bruce was actually inspired, partially at least, by Thomas Wayne dressing up as a bat in a Halloween costume. Which is whatever, I don't care. But in this, Thomas Wayne is Batman, and he's more brutal, and he channels early 30s Batman, where he carries a gun. Instead of the mugging, the killing Thomas and Martha, Bruce and Martha die. And in this reality, there is no Superman because
There's only Zool.
There is no Superman, there is only Zool. Because Kal-El's crashed ship from Krypton was found. Lex Luthor figured out, was a scientist, and he figured out what he was, and so they kept him in a cage, underground, where he would never get any sunlight, so he could never actually fully manifest as Superman, and he was just kind of some sort of wormy kid who gets his books dumped.
Oh man, I was gonna buy my lunch with that money.
Oh, my asthma. It turns out that the entire thing was a plot by the Reverse Flash to torture Barry Allen, but the plot points of that story don't really matter. It's kind of more like a conglomeration of different Elseworld stories, but not good ones, but still somehow ended the universe. A lot of it has to do with their retconning motivation for Barry Allen, where Barry's mother was murdered and his dad was framed for the murder, and that's why he became a forensic scientist and all that. In the story, it's a retcon. The fact that it's a retcon is a plot point because it was all set up by the Reverse Flash from the future, setting up events that would create Barry Allen so that he could hate him in the future.
It's very Terminator logic.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, but more avoidable. If you just didn't do that, it wouldn't be a problem. Taking out revenge on somebody by creating them, probably not the greatest strategy.
But see, you can't have revenge on them if you don't create them.
You also don't need revenge on them if they don't exist.
You idiot!
Oh, I should have thought this through.
You made me.
The whole thing is just like, what would the world be like if X happened? What is it that happened? Is it the Flash doesn't exist? Is that what it is?
Man, I remember him getting electrocuted in a chair, which allowed him to...
An electric chair, if you will.
Through. It was a literal electric chair. I don't know.
It doesn't matter.
It wasn't very good. And the odd thing about this is they have taken this poor to middling comic, average at the very best, and decided to make it a key plot device in comics going forward and in their TV and moviedom.
I have to think it's only because it's more recent. You can't do Infinite Crisis because that's predicated specifically on Crisis on Infinite Earths, and you'd have to do that first. And so they were like, well, Flashpoint's an easy one to jump off on. It's right there. We have a TV show called The Flash, whatever. All right.
So after Flashpoint, the most important DC thing to ever happen.
According to all of their advertising.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many people come in asking for Flashpoint, and I'm like, well, it kind of sucks, but here it is. Well, in comparison to the things we're going to come up to in the near future, it's golden, my friend.
Yeah, that's true. It is probably better than a lot.
So Flashpoint kind of led us up to the next revamp, relaunch, reboot.
The 3 R's.
The New 52.
Did you go to school, Jake?
Overrated. What do I need to know that the NRA can't teach me?
Well, what the R stands for, I guess.
Rifles.
Yep, rifles, reading, arithmetic. That's America in a nutshell. Well, except for the writing and reading part.
Yeah, you need... Oh, man. What are our true 3 R's? Rifles?
Recidivism.
Yeah.
Retconning.
There you go. The 3 R's of America. Anywho, so after Flashpoint, DC decided to relaunch their whole line. They stopped all the books, restarted them all new number ones for everything. Even the titles that have been going on since the dawn of time, the 1930s, which would have been Action Comics and Detective Comics.
No one was alive then.
And DC folded like a flan in a cupboard.
It's very Prussian.
Oh, Eddie, you're the best. Well, just like Eddie Izzard likes to change things around, so does DC.
Oh, wow. All right.
I had to do something. So some things stayed the same. So stuff like Green Lantern pretty much went straight from what it was before, straight to the new book. Other books, like Action Comics, focused more on a young, new to the Metropolis Superman, kind of a Peter Parker version of Superman.
Basically a bath towel tied around his neck, cape.
Yes.
Type. He wore blue jeans, for Christ's sake.
But it was more leaping over tall buildings instead of flying to the sun.
I kind of would rather have that than like the Zack Snyder Man of Steel thing. You get into this alien stuff so much, and the alien tech and the suit and all that, and I like a lot of that to a certain extent. At some point, it's kind of fun to just see them learn who they are in the real world. You know what I mean?
Yes, very much, especially for DC characters, which always have the God complex, where they're above mortal squabbles and issues. Something Marvel doesn't really have to deal with, but when you have Superman, when you have Wonder Woman, when you have The Flash, you can... So some stuff was all new, like that. They also decided to merge Vertigo and Wildstorm into the DC universe.
Which is where the bleed comes in. They've taken that from Image Comics. Basically extracted it like blue blood from that was the Morbius reference, from Image Comics.
Morbius sucks. I can't even say it's garbage. It's just boring.
Hey, you know what? You got to give it to Jared Leto for being in the 2 worst movies of both the comic book companies. Suicide Squad and Morbius.
Do you think Suicide Squad's the worst? Worse than BVS?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Because at least there's something that you can kind of hang your hat on. You can kind of like, oh, it's kind of cool to see them on the screen at the same time. That's something, I guess. Hey, KG Beast is almost in this movie. As opposed to Suicide Squad, where you are not invested in any of the characters, you don't care about any of them, you don't know who they are, and then the absolute travesty of Slipknot.
Yeah. I mean, but it's
at
Slipknot.
A beach, and you kill him in the first 2 minutes of the movie.
It's dumb. At least they don't take characters that you actually like and make you actively dislike them. And surround them by maybe even a more dumb and trite plot than Suicide Squad?
Well, but I mean, in Suicide Squad, you actively dislike Jared Leto's Joker.
Yeah.
You actively dislike his Joker.
Yeah, no, it's not good. And he's a villain. Plus,
but they're all villains, so that doesn't matter.
Well, he's kind of, I'd put the emphasis on there he's prostituting his girlfriend and a horrible...
Well, we barely know that because they cut out almost, 90% of his scenes in that movie?
Release the Ayer cut.
Never release the Ayer cut.
Here's an idea. Just make good movies. Then we don't have to deal with, which one's the worst.
Yeah, how about that? Yeah, we don't have to deal with, hey, so which is your favorite form of cancer?
Testicular.
Okay, well, let's roll with that. I'm going to draw the line at pancreatic, though, because that's taken so many of them from us, like Swayze and many others.
Aside, just as we're recording, Gilbert Gottfried died today. You see that?
Yeah, I was really upset about that. Yeah, because it was like, he's one of those guys that are like, how old was he? I don't know. He could have been 35 or 90. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
Also, he has a reputation among stand-up comedians for being the ballsiest comedian of all time because the day after 9/11, he not only did not cancel his show, he went on stage and did a whole set about 9/11 jokes.
Nothing held that dude back.
You gotta hand it to him.
One of a kind.
He called him like I seed him.
But anyway, the New 52 was kind of a relaunch, kind of a jumping on point, ideally, for a lot of new readers or people coming back to the franchise. Unfortunately, this is one of the many times that DC does this. And while you get new people at the beginning, a lot of times you can alienate those who've been around for a long, long time. Mm-hmm. And we'll see this happen again and again. So that's 2011, and then we get into...
So what happened was that now the universe is reset again.
Yes, essentially.
Basically what happened was that when they bring Jim Lee aboard as co-publisher, because there's like this weird internal struggle between Dan Didio, who is the DC publisher, and the front office of DC, which like now includes Jeff Johns, and they have this weird political struggle where they kind of hate each other, and they're trying to passive-aggressively thwart each other's plans, and they acquired Wildstorm in an ironic acquisition to come aboard DC. And Jim Lee, of course, is the owner of the Wildstorm universe, because that's how Image worked. That's where you get the Bleed and a lot of characters that come from the Wildstorm universe. Yeah, so there's this weird thing where they were like, well, instead of going with what DC's done before, let's just create our own universe from scratch right now and put Jim Lee in charge of it, because that worked so well in 1993 or whatever. So Jeff Johns and Jim Lee sat down and went, hey, let's go back to the magical year of 1993 and reboot the DC universe in that image. It does. It happens. It resolves itself. Who cares? Whatever. Yeah. And then Convergence is them further writing themselves into a corner. We've reintroduced the multiverse. We have to acknowledge the multiverse. Not just because we reintroduced it like idiots, but also because we bought properties that now have to fit into this universe. So we have to figure out a way to streamline the whole thing yet again, except with all the attention to detail and gravitas that Crisis on Infinite Earths had. This one was like using a head screwdriver to pry open your car door that you've locked the keys into. Unnecessarily stupid and monotonous thing where they had to come up with a new villain who you could just swap out for the Beyonder, as far as I'm concerned. I don't
even remember who.
I don't care, and I don't care. Who cares? That's the point. We care so little, and I read DC. I care so little that we're not going to tell you who he is. You go figure that out yourself.
Yeah.
It's
your funeral.
Well, literally, we will come to your house. So Convergence doesn't matter.
Convergence doesn't matter. But what kind of matters is what pseudo happens next, or at the same time, is Grant Morrison's The Multiversity, which is essentially a 2-issue book with some one-shots in between that just explores the DC Multiverse and tries to reorganize it in a certain way. Mm-hmm. And it blends elements of Morrison's Batman run, his Batman Incorporated, his Seven Soldiers of Victory, his New 52 Action Comics run, and his Final Crisis stuff to do weirdness.
To be Grant Morrison.
Yeah, to be Grant Morrison. And it's an exploration of different multiverses, and they're incorporating things like Captain Carrot, which was really kind of outside any type of mainstream.
Right. For Marvel fans, Captain Carrot is the equivalent of Spider-Ham.
Yes. He's a big old jacked up bunny.
Yeah, they have this weird Looney Tunes type anthropomorphic. Though not the Looney Tunes, which is owned by Warner Brothers. You figure like they could do that, but they don't.
One of the things that he did do was he did write a story that seemed to be in the Watchmen verse, which does lead into something that comes later.
Wait, what story was that?
Pax Americana one.
Oh.
Takes place on Earth 4, featuring characters from Charlton Comics.
Wow, what an interesting way to backdoor into Watchmen. Interesting. For those of you who don't know, the entire Watchmen universe is based on a property that DC bought back in the 80s called Charlton Comics, and Alan Moore pitched a story, an idea he had for a retrospective story about how superheroes would be in the real world, and so he decided to use Charlton characters, but DC didn't want to ruin those characters because they thought they might use them later, so they forced him to come up with new ones, and so that's when you get Dr. Manhattan, which is the Atom, Rorschach, which is the Question, that whole rigmarole.
And kind of what he was doing here was, he introduced the very Stranger Things Demogorgon, mind the sprawling hordes, which are invading the multiverse. And he also gets really meta, and he talks directly to the comic reader.
Morrison gets meta? Wait, hold on.
I know, it's unlike him. So you, as the reader of the comic book, you're reading a comic book where another reader is reading that comic book, and that reader becomes like the main protagonist of the book. It's like a young teenage Monitor race character who's reading the comic book, and then he takes on stuff and forms his team, and then they all like fight and stuff. But essentially, like Grant maps the multiverse, and with the 52 universes and the sphere of the gods on the outside, and blah blah blah, the Monitor sphere and the source wall and everything. And that's all stuff that will last for, I don't know, maybe a year or so.
I do appreciate, though, in this era, like if you go back and you read some Grant Morrison, like you pick up later Grant Morrison where he introduces Damian and all that kind of stuff, like his Batman run or whatever, like not great. Not only should you go back and read his other stuff, which is fantastic, but he does some really cool little things in this era that people don't recognize, like Captain Marvel villain that's the super intelligent caterpillar. Well, so it's a villain that's literally a super intelligent, back in the old
If you guys saw the Shazam film, that's the Stinger scene.
Right. So in Grant Morrison's, it went from a caterpillar with Coke bottle glasses into the giant meta moth that is like the living embodiment of our observation of the universe or whatever. It's like he does some really cool stuff that I don't think people give him credit for.
Oh yeah, ideas are never the problem with Grant. It's really kind of sometimes too many ideas, and stuff is a bit too out there. But I'd rather read that than just mewling tripe, which we often get.
Yeah, I'd rather do that than anything by Jeff Loeb ever.
Well, Tim Sale stuff.
Well, some of the Tim Sale stuff. He did a lot of that stuff that people forget, like Daredevil Yellow and Spider-Man Blue.
Yeah,
and
those are good.
They're okay. I mean,
they're not amazing, but pretty solid. I mean, it's not Superman for all seasons, or
right, or Long Halloween, but I mean, then you also have Jeff Loeb's Hush, or
Jeff Loeb's Ultimates 3.
The Ultimates, which is god awful.
There's a lot of
or anything he did with television, like Heroes.
The beginning of Heroes. I'm not gonna hate on that.
Yeah, which even the beginning, they're just ripping off X-Men plots from the 80s.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't hate that. Everything comes from somewhere.
Well, yeah. Okay, sure. Fine. Anyway.
But anyway, so in 2011, the New 52 did its thing. It has been a whole 5 years since then. And in 2016, DC decided, let's relaunch again. So they did DC Rebirth.
So they did Rebirth.
Yes, they did Rebirth.
Which is a branding that Jeff Johns started with bringing back Hal Jordan as Green Lantern Rebirth, and then he did Flash Rebirth, which was weak in comparison. But they proved popular and reset those characters, so they figured, hey, let's just ride that Jeff Johns train again and use Rebirth to reset all of DC.
Yep. Yeah. And again, this one had even less hubbub and interest than New 52, I would say.
Which is sad.
Yeah. If anything, I think you probably had a few more people leaving reading DC. You had a few people who came on board, some different writers and creators who...
Oh, this is kind of important. We didn't talk about the New 52. We went from Flashpoint to just talking about Convergence and how we hate it. The New 52 reset the DC universe to be only 5 years old. And that's kind of a problem because some of those other books didn't reset. So how the because the Green Lantern book didn't reset. And so how does that work out that Kyle Rayner has been Green Lantern for years, but Hal Jordan has just become Green Lantern?
The one I always like to use is Damian, Batman's son.
Right.
So Batman became Batman, had a Robin. That Robin grew up and became Nightwing, had another Robin. That Robin died, had another Robin. That Robin's doing his own thing with the Teen Titans. Had a child who was then grew up to be anywhere between 10 and, I mean, 8 and 15. And then came to be Robin with him. That all happened in 5 years.
In 5 years.
What?
It's like the reverse problem of The Force Awakens when they're like, there's only 26 minutes or whatever left before this thing blows up, and then 3 hours go by, and you're like, okay, that's why they had to reboot New 52. We should admit, well, not that, and it sucked.
Well, yeah, I mean, they rebooted it just to have new number ones, honestly.
Well, also because that didn't make any sense, and everyone hated it.
Yes, but that wasn't, I don't think that was derailing people buying. It's one of those things that didn't make sense, but all the stories and the writing from that era just went into the shitter.
Yeah, well, I mean, but like the entire thing was about rebranding, you know, like they redesigned Superman's costume, they redesigned Wonder Woman's costume, they had Jim Lee streamline all this stuff, and they're like, well, were you not around in the early 90s? Is that, do you not remember X-Men #1?
No, they do. They just keep doing the same thing.
Because now Superman's got a high neck collar thing with red belt, and Wonder Woman has got a leather jacket, like most Greek goddesses do.
All my Greek goddesses do.
well, that's a horse of a different feather. So essentially, the reason they rebooted New 52 was because not only was the branding super unpopular, and we should mention that this parallels with they recreated the DC logo. In every time they rebooted this, they went company-wide. Not just in the continuity, not just within the scope of the comics. They were like, no, this is going to be branding for TV shows and movies and comics. So like when they finally went away from the bullet, which is what the old circle, faster than speeding, the old circle with the stars around the outside and DC in the middle, that was their old pre-Crisis up to Infinite Crisis logo, correct? I think it's Infinite Crisis was when they changed that. Around that?
It's tough to remember.
It's around that. Yeah, it is. It's around, because it was like 2006 or so. And then they went with the DC logo that I didn't think was terrible. The one that they use in the opening of Dark Knight.
Okay.
They use it for that, but that's one of the only times you'll ever see it. And then they go and redesign it again to a weird hybrid of the original bullet and some other typography from older DC stuff. And I think it's weak, probably their weakest one, but they decided to stick with it. So like the idea was we're not just doing continuity reboots and multiverse reboots, we're rebranding the entire concept of DC Comics. Again and again and again, and at some point you're just gonna have to just, pick a horse, man.
You'd like to think so, wouldn't you?
If it's not Comet the super horse, I'm gonna be disappointed.
Well, Rebirth reset some things, and one thing it set into motion was the Doomsday Clock, as they brought Dr. Manhattan kind of in a DC continuity, kind of not. Doomsday Clock was a sometimes good, sometimes not so good, but very drawn out, as they had multiple issues with publishing it. It lasted for 2 years over its 12 issues.
Yeah, it's like Clone Saga stuff there.
And I can't honestly tell you where that fits within continuity.
I mean, that's basically where I dropped off, because I don't know anything past essentially that. But I think the idea was that they were going to bring the Vertigo label into mainstream DC. So they integrated stuff that they already parsed out to Vertigo, their sub, their darker sub, print
stuff that they
label.
hadn't already brought over. Like your Swamp Thing, your Sandman,
They brought Sandman back into continuity. Yeah, John Constantine, they brought that whole rigmarole. I mean, unfortunately, we never saw Spider Jerusalem working at the Daily Planet, but you did see... So they were like, well, the ultimate thing we have to do is bring over Watchmen, which they had pushed over into Vertigo. their more adult line, even though it originally was a DC label.
And really, it was its own thing, because it wasn't connected to those other books in any way.
No, but it was published by DC,
Yes, yeah.
not by Vertigo. Yeah.
But it wasn't necessarily part of the Vertigo universe, per se.
Right. So now they're eliminating the Vertigo universe and bringing it all back into DC.
Nope, no more Vertigo.
All right. Well, that's kind of a shame, really.
Not so cool. Yeah, it sucks. It really does. Currently, their new adult thing is called Black Label.
But yeah.
Black Label. And that started with Batman Damned, which was the Bat Dong, the Batawang, the Bat Cock.
Wow. Well, yeah, you've had this conversation many times, haven't you?
Yeah, we had a lot of people looking for that issue.
Where he hangs brain?
Yeah. Well, you can just barely see the outline of a cockle.
You barely see some trunk, but...
Which they quickly, used for publicity to then excise it from all later editions of the book. And then they have used that label to apply to all other things that are pseudo-adult and or Vertigo-ish.
Right, they wanted to bring it all under the umbrella of DC instead of people thinking that Vertigo was separate from DC.
Right.
Which,
if people couldn't figure it out, then too bad for them.
Especially since Batman villains show up in Sandman. I mean, come on. And Swamp Thing. I mean, come on. The Floronic Man shows up in the first issue of Villain War Swamp Thing. I mean, come on.
Honestly, it's a new way for them to reprint books and put them under a different label.
That's true.
Yeah, it's all stupid. So Doomsday Clock was happening. Anyway. While that was happening, we also had, if you look at Wikipedia, they will say they were well reviewed and well received and sold super well. If you ask me, they were complete garbage, and I hated them. And these were the Dark Knight's Metal and Dark Knight's Death Metal. Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo of Spawn fame.
Yeah.
They decided to do these books where you not only have the Omniverse, and underneath everything, there's a dark multiverse that is split off from the core multiverses. Like, that makes any goddamn sense?
That makes no sense whatsoever.
And this gave rise to these dark versions of Batman. Essentially, what if Batman killed Hal Jordan, became a dark Green Lantern? What if Batman became a cyborg dude? What if Batman was like a Doomsday Batman? And what if Batman became the Joker, which is the Batman Who Laughs, which, of course, sold like crazy cakes.
Well, it is the most high concept of those, because the Joker originally was named after a movie called The Man Who Laughs. He was patterned after that, so... But
that's also you reading into that. Because if you read the comics, and you read the comics in total, you're giving it way too much credit.
Well, but that's where they get the name. I mean, you're not going to come with that out of the blue, you know?
True. So the whole idea of metal was... There were these... Stupid. Dark Knight's Death Metal required reading. No such thing. Let me find it.
Well, in the meantime, I'd like to go back and put an emphasis on the idea that the reason, the justification for bringing Dr. Manhattan into the mainstream DC universe was that this is maybe the greatest, cheapest, most effective, lamest thing that DC's done since Crisis on Infinite Earths, in that the reason that characters don't make sense, timelines don't make sense, reboots don't make sense, and they've been all over the place, is because Dr. Manhattan is manipulating reality behind the scenes, tweaking and paring things down. So every time there's a crisis, it's Dr. Manhattan's fault. And he's the one trying to fix reality, which is both cheap and brilliant at the same time. And so that kind of really changes not only Dr. Manhattan's character, well, I don't know, it kind of plays into Dr. Manhattan's character, even though it makes it cheap, but gives excuse to all of the bad decision-making that everyone had made for the last 10 years.
Which continues on into Dark Knight's Metal. I just want to give you an idea of kind of what was going on. So there's a dark god, Barbatos, which is obsessed with
Barbasol.
Batman and Batman across the multiverses, and he's trying to take over all of light and being and Earth, and the heroes have to go to the World Forge after they use songs to like break them out of their stupor in an other world thing to then
Oh my god.
bring together the various metals that have been used as MacGuffins through things. Electrum from the
Nth
Court of
metal.
Owls, Dionysium from Endgame, Promethium from Super Heavy, the Nth metal from the casting, and the Batmantium from the second issue of the series.
Shut the f
This
up.
is what
Don't
happened.
do that.
Yes, this is all real.
Oh my god.
To defeat the Dark God.
Okay. Here's an important question. Was Dark Claw's claws made of Batmantium?
I'm going to say yes.
All right, problem
Done.
solved.
Yep.
There we go. Moving on.
That's just a taste. That's just a taste. The whole book, the whole series is like that. I hated it. I couldn't stand it.
Okay, so wait. So basically what they did was they made a modern version of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles coming out of their shells tour where they became glam rock stars to fight evil with music.
That truly happens in death metal. The next one where they have they're in punk rock outfits and they're like guitar weapons. It came out with an album that was paired with it.
And you're telling me Kiss was not involved in any way?
Oh, if only they could have. That was just more of the same. In fact, it got worse. There was a new dark goddess that they had to fight, and one woman had to sacrifice herself and become a god that then took I don't know. She can surrender to the darkest night and use her combined powers to kill the Hands of Fate.
Manos, the Hands of Fate?
It's all more multiverse, omniverse, blah, blah, blah. Which then brings us to Infinite Frontier, which is the relaunch of DC Comics in 2021. The follow-up to 2016's Rebirth.
So how many relaunches have they had at this point in the last 5 years? What, 5? 4 or 5?
2, 3. I would go with hard 3, soft 4 to 5.
Inches.
Yeah, and the DC Multiverse expands into a larger omniverse where everything is canon and Steel.
Oh, so what they brought back Hyper Time then is what you're saying?
I mean, this was it. The new multiverse has 2 opposite worlds that represent the metaverse and sustain the balance. One is the Elseworld, the other is Earth Omega. In the new status quo, all DC history counts when understanding a character's backstory and legacy and history within the franchise, emphasized by editorial mandate.
That's Hyper Time.
Yeah, so
That's Hyper Time.
yeah, they just kind of wrote it all out again and brought it all
Their final
back.
solution is Hyper Time? The worst one they did? Oh my god!
Yeah, the soft relaunch and new approach to history also completes what began with DC Rebirth in restoring the status quo of characters prior to the popular New 52 changes, reestablishing characters' memories and relationships with each other, while selectively retaining some of the simplified backstories from the modern era and many of the characters.
Almost as if they shouldn't have done any of that shit in the first place. Wow.
One last thing that just recently happened is Future State. And that came out in 2021 and consists of multiple stories which happen in the near possible future and now. It was a completely different idea that was done by Dan Didio. Dan Didio was fired. They already had it kind of pseudo written out and set aside because they stopped all of their comic books for 2 or 3 months to do this. So they did this, so that Future State on it. And then some of the things that sold well or that people liked, they just decided to bring in a continuity. They were all multiversal elements, but do they fit in modern continuity? Who cares? Who knows? Let's just do it.
Hey, everybody, please like
Let's
us.
just wing it.
Oh my god, let's night wing it.
Yeah, which is kind of our current state of the DC comics in general and the multiverse.
A future state.
It's all just let's just batter wing it, you know? Let's see what drops.
Number wang.
Let's see what's hanging. And
Oh my god.
we'll delete the things that we don't like or that get us in trouble, only to be brought back 5 years later, or 3 years later, or 2 years later, or next issue. This is one of the problems that I have with new readers trying to come in and read DC, and they try to like, well, how does this fit in with this? I'm like, I don't know. It just does, I guess.
Oh god, it's like being in a high school like yearbook club. Everybody comes up with their own ideas about what it means, and it doesn't mean anything, and it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Now, the thing is, like, maybe that would be okay. That is very much the idea of what a lot of Marvel does. They do events, they kind of pick and choose what they want to keep, and they put it in there. But they have a tendency to just roll with things and let them fit in their own spaces. DC has always been a stickler, so when they do giant relaunches, rebirths, recockles, and then it doesn't fit, and it doesn't make sense,
They have to redo the whole
they
thing.
redo the whole thing.
Yep. Well, okay, yeah, that's exactly my argument before about, like, Star Trek, okay? Like, Marvel is very much Star Wars, and DC is very much Star Trek, in that Marvel, like, yeah, they do exactly like you just said, and then Star Wars is kind of like, well, you know, those Ewoks movies happened, but they didn't, so whatever, you know, and then, but some of them, you know, some of those characters exist, but probably not, and then they just roll with it. But with DC, it's like, just like with Star Trek, we're like, well, we have a canon, and we've made it important that we have a canon, so when you don't know how to deal with canon, you've really yourself. When Alex Kurtzman took over as basically the new Roddenberry, they did Discovery, and they basically retconned a bunch of continuity that has already been well established and reinforced by other shows, and then they have to go, well, no, it's really in canon because of this, and we'll go back and explain it, and well, we find these loopholes, and it's like, well, just why didn't you just follow it to begin with, and you wouldn't be here, you wouldn't be up to your necks in bullshit if you would just do it right the first time. And that's much like the multiverse.
That is indeed like the multiverse. It's a crisis of our conscience is what it is.
Yeah, it's true. The conscience of the king. Yes, it is. It's a crisis of our faith in storytelling.
Yeah.
If you're gonna do it right.
Yeah, which, again, I feel like DC's...
You missed it again.
DC's...
It's the second time you've... It's the second time you've missed a George Michael reference.
Oh,
I don't.
I'm sorry.
I mean, how many times do we have to? No.
I'm sorry. You got to wake me up before you go, Skip.
I think that's exactly the response you had last time.
Jitterbug.
Oh, we're terrific.
Unfortunately, DC isn't taking their own advice yet again. And with their Flash film, if it ever happens, if it ever comes out, it seems that they are just swinging for the fences and going willy-nilly, doing whatever they feel like. From what I've heard, you have Michael Keaton's Batman coming in. You have them...
in two different projects.
You have them just excising Superman from their continuity.
Until they introduce the Black Superman, which is coming
Yeah,
up.
which, again, with DC, is that going to fit together? The Joker doesn't fit with Suicide Squad. The Batman doesn't fit with Justice League. Does the Flash fit with anything?
But you kind of have to, because he's shown up in other things. He showed up in the Flash TV show.
Yeah, I don't know. I literally don't know. I don't have any good way to explain it to anybody trying to figure it out or to be prepared for what's coming. Other than they will do multiverses, there will be different versions of people. At least from what I've seen, there's going to be multiple versions of Ezra Miller's Flash.
Yeah, well, they've shown that in the trailer.
I'm assuming this will have something to do with the Justice League Flashpoint stuff they had, where he would come through time rifts to warn Bruce?
Because of the nightmare timeline.
Right. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing.
So basically, what you can draw from DC's entire approach to the multiverse is it's a little bit of history repeating. It's all happened before, and it'll all happen again. They established all of their characters and their continuity early on by smashing together a bunch of different stuff that contradicted itself, and then realized they had a problem, did a brilliant thing to excise that and bring it all under one umbrella, and then completely, apparently, got hit on the head with a bowling ball, and then forgot that all of that happened and decided it was a great idea to do all of the stupid mistakes and bullshit over again. And now they're in the exact same place they were before Crisis on Infinite Earths, but now, not just in the comics, but in the movies. They're doing the same thing they did in the comics in their movies. And now they're scrambling to figure out how to fix it. That part is Zack Snyder and David Goyer and Jeff Johns. But you were going to do it in real life, too? You were going to do it in the movies, too? The same mistakes you've been making over and over again for, 60 years?
Skip, I got an idea.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Relaunch. Let's do it all again.
So you're saying is we're in crisis. I don't even know if Flash could save this one, man. No, apparently it can't. Apparently it's the only crisis Flash can't fix, because that movie may never happen, because Ezra Miller slapped some kids at a karaoke night. There's no hope.
Nope, and that goes for everything, folks. Not just comics, not just podcasts. That's life.
Superman and the Blue Lantern are not coming to save you. Sorry.
We're all
Yeah. Make sure you vote in the midterms, ladies and gentlemen.
And while you're voting, make sure to click like, subscribe, maybe share, maybe write a 10 multiverse review for us,
How do you do that in a voting booth? I don't know.
You got your phone. Your phone does all this.
I don't know if you're supposed to do that, but whatever. Who cares? You're right.
Oh.
You should definitely.
Yeah, I mean, are we doing like no phones in the voting booth? Because that's like no.
Not gonna fall for the banana in the tailpipe. Yeah, but you should. You should do what Jake says. Like, subscribe, share,
do everything I say.
Revere, bow down,
grovel,
sacrifice your closest kin.
You don't even like them.
Tap that mana.
Tap it up.
Roll a hard 6.
Or nat 20. Do that.
We are chaotic evil. Follow us on all of our, things that's out there in the interwebs.
All our bat dongles. Yeah. Follow them. Look for it.
Anytime you see Batman hanging brain, make sure you listen to an episode of our show. Every time Batman hangs brain, an angel gets its brain. We're going to sign off and go drink ourselves into oblivion because it's garbage. And we're both fans of this stuff. God damn it.
Yep.
So we would like to remind you to pay your tabs, tip your bartenders and your waitresses. Oh, I don't know why I assumed it was just waitresses. That's not cool. Wait staff. Make sure you've cleaned up after yourselves to some sort of reasonable degree. Don't forget to support your local comic shops and retailers. And from Dispatch Ajax, we would like to say, Godspeed, fair wizards.
Woohoo!
Woo-hoo!
Master P, get out of here!
Rufio!
Delightful.
We're terrific.
Remember, no matter where you go,